Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. I am one of your hosts, Sheldon McKinney.
And I'm your other host, Ruth Ann Fink.
We have a great guest today. We have Janella Miller. She is an agriculture teacher at Pulaski County High School, and she's currently serving as the president of the Kentucky Association of Agriculture Educators. And we'll refer to that as KAAE throughout this podcast. But Janella is a leader amongst her peers in her profession. She's a farmer, a mother, and a great ag teacher. And so, Janella, welcome to the podcast, and share with our listeners a little bit more about yourself and how you found your path in ag education.
Thank you. I'm tickled to death to be here, and you make me sound so wonderful. And I'm just trying hard every day, like everybody else. I found my path to agriculture education through my ag teachers who set a great example for me. And that's the same story that you hear from lots of people. But I was the student who wasn't very certain, and they kind of guided me along and put me in the place I needed to be. I had started out teaching science, and so I didn't find an ag position right away, but I was able to teach agriculture to those science students. And then as time passed, I was able to find an ag position, and I landed here in Pulaski County. It's a very large county, and so there's a lot of differences in the agriculture across the county, which has been eye-opening, and I've enjoyed that with my students and learning as they learn. They've taught me probably more than I have taught them in the last decade and more that I've been here. So I have a large group of students that are flowing in and out every year that make my career enjoyable. So that's what I attribute the joy that I have for my profession. So
give us a little snapshot about your school. How many students go there? How many years have you been teaching? And what kind of classes are you offering?
So we have about 1,200 students at Pulaski County High School. Our agriculture courses include the animal science pathway, horticulture, plant science systems, environmental science, ag business, and ag mechanics. So it covers lots of bases. Mr. Dixon is my co-teacher that's full-time. Miss Evans is part ag, part business. She has an ag major, but she does serve the business CTE area also. We have, as far as facilities, we have a greenhouse, we have a nice ag shop, and we are building a barn at this time. The barn will be between us and the middle school. Our goal is eventually to have a middle school program. Between the three of us, two of us are PC graduates. So Mr. Dixon and Miss Evans graduated from here. Miss Evans was a student here my first year. And so she was a senior that first semester. I started in January. So I can claim her as one of mine. She was Jimmy Wilden's first, but she's mine too. And then Mr. Dixon graduated from here and was the chapter president. Our FFA chapter has about 150 members on average. We do affiliate, and affiliation covers all these students. So if they choose to become a part of the chapter, our Farm Bureau partners with us for that affiliation, and they pay a little bit of a dues. And they're active in all kinds of events. We attend the field days and so on. So they keep us busy. We don't say we're keeping them busy. They are asking for things, and they keep us busy. So
Oh, that's so good. Well, and you all have in your chapter specifically, and people who know Kentucky FFA chapters, like you all are always doing something, and you all do stay busy. And I want to commend you, Janella. Like you've stayed really committed to your own personal, professional growth and life, like this mentality of lifelong learning. And so I just wanted to ask, like, why is that important to you? Why is that something that you make a focus and you work at, and how has it helped you in your career?
it's really important for me to be an example for my students and let them see me modeling what I expect of them. We don't ask them to do any type of job physically demanding or mentally demanding in our classroom or in our lab opportunities that we don't do. So I want them to see me do that. That extends to things like KAAE. It extends to me attending Farm Bureau events or Cattlemen Association, or my husband and I are part of Sheep Producers Association, the breed association for our breed, as well as a couple other associated with sheep. I want them to see that networking is important, that communicating with people in the industry is important. And so I just try to model that so that the students can see, oh, Miss Miller's doing this, and this is why it's important, so that I have an experience. My ag teacher told me a long time ago when we bought our first farm, he said, and our only farm that we've owned, he said, you're going to gain credibility with your students. You're going to experience the hardships, and you're going to experience the successes that you're going to be able to share in the classroom. And that's true with a farm, that's true in the classroom, and in the professional businesses or professional associations that we
Yeah.
put ourselves into. I'm a
Absolutely.
lifelong learner. So I need to be learning and gaining information to share with my students.
And you do, you really do.
Yeah. Janelle, you are also serving as president of KAAE. So let's talk about that. What is the Ag Teachers Association? How do you all serve your profession? And why do you think it's important to be engaged as a part of it?
As past president of KAAE, I gained a lot of, I think mostly I gained a lot of networking. And I don't look at networking as a personal gain. I look at networking as the ability to help others, to gain other pieces of what they need. So I'm a person who I feel like the younger teachers can talk to me, and the older teachers can talk to me. And they can all see, okay, so I need to call Janella because I saw her talk about something at a PD once upon a time. As past president, that was something that was an important value that I saw in previous years. Mentorships happen naturally. It wasn't a planned event. It was something that was just natural. And that was a benefit to me in my younger years as a teacher. Now, working with the team that I work with still, those officers, Daniel Bustle, and all of those individuals who are working, Lindsay Davey, I can't even name them all right this second, but they're all exceptional examples in their areas and in their part of the state. And KAAE has been a great asset to our state for our teachers because of the things they facilitated, the opportunities to travel, the places that they we set up and we're together, and those type of things. So
yeah, that's great.
And you mentioned, Janella, you mentioned as a younger teacher, some of the things that were really helpful to you and why you've kind of made some decisions to remain a lifelong learner. What advice would you go back and tell young Janella first starting out teaching ag ed? What advice or encouragement would you tell yourself when you were first starting this career?
ask for help more often. I've always been a slow starter. It always takes me a little bit longer because I tend to fill my plates. I'm a yes person. I would say to my younger self, ask for help more often, prioritize better. A wise lady I heard speak not long ago talked about choosing wisely about priorities and choices. And she said that she had learned that. I've also learned that over time. My family, my faith, all that is top priority. And so that young teacher who was filling her plate so full, I probably could have made a better impact in specialty areas or in smaller, and if I had have just been a little bit more focused on those tasks, like, but I stressed a lot about, was I good enough? And that's really, that's guilt. Like, you carry that guilt for a little bit, and that's not a great thing to do, but I learned to overcome that, and I've learned what I'm best at. And my students also make me better at that because they will identify what your weakness and your strengths are. So that helped me through that also. So I would just tell myself to prioritize and pick and choose things that I know that I'm going to be helpful to others and that I'm going to be helpful to myself and my family. So
yeah,
that is so wise. I was an agriculture teacher for 4.5 years, and I think even like my peers in that age range and experience range of teaching, like that is an important message that a lot of young teachers need to hear. So thank you for sharing that.
yeah. It's really good. Janelle, I got to speak with new teachers last weekend. And I think that's something that young teachers need to hear is that you can say no to some things. You can, and you can go, this isn't serving me or our chapter. And if I can free this time up, I can do something else better. And it's okay. Sometimes we just haven't taught people well. Just because you're asked doesn't mean you have to say yes if it doesn't serve the greater good and your priorities. So
right,
people need
I agree.
So one thing that we are really proud of at the FFA Foundation is that how we give back to local chapters and students. And when I look at places who've received a lot of our grant funding, Pulaski County happens to be served by 2 of our grant funders who serve in geographic areas, the Steel Reese Foundation and First Southern National Bank. They both give funding that you are available to apply for SAE grants. I don't know how many $500 SAE grants we've sent to Pulaski County High School, but it's quite a few. Tell us a little bit about how that has maybe transformed your students' experiences in SAE programs at your chapter.
Number one, it has students asking more about SAEs and inquiring earlier in their high school career. We have more freshmen looking at that and saying, what can I do with my SAE? How do I gain a grant? And how can I go from there? And the fact that they can apply again, that if they get started and they're successful, or if they're not successful, but they have found a piece, they can add to it. They like that potential. So those students that are getting going with chickens or whatever it is, they're choosing earlier on. So I'm not getting a junior who's like, oh, let's ramp up this SAE now. So the other thing with the SAE grants and the opportunities there is that it builds a network in the community with students and those businesses, and they see that there's support. The parents see that there's support, and that adds value to our program. So when a parent says, I had a parent call me and he said, do you think my kid has a shot at getting that grant? And I'm like, absolutely. He has a great project. He's written it well. He'd written his grant application well. And I said, other students have received them in similar settings in our state. And I said, I feel like he has a great shot. So the parents are taking a look, and they're also asking about the value of the SAE and the value of their student being involved in the agriculture community. So that adds. It also has people in the community looking at us saying, what else do you need? So we have other supporters who are looking at us and saying, I see you're getting these SAE grants. What else do your kids need? So that's opened another door.
Yeah. Giving grows giving, and it inspires more giving. That's kind of maybe opposite of what people think, but when they see like, oh, they are stewarding this money well, it is making a difference, it asks more people to step up because they want to be involved in the positive impact you're having.
Yeah, and you all have such great relationships within your community, and I think you all do that so well. I wanted to ask, what would you share with donors that are giving to the Kentucky FFA Foundation about this is why you should continue to give, because this is the impact it's making. It's really making a difference here locally. What message would you share with donors to continue giving to the foundation?
It's real and it's tangible.
Mm.
It's something that the students and their families experience together. They're learning from that. No matter what pathway that kid uses that money in, if they use it on the plant pathway or ag mechanics pathway, it is a real tangible thing that they are putting into work. If they buy a welder with the money, if they buy breeding stock, it's tangible. I can't get much better than that, because a kid gets a college scholarship and it goes into their education, and that's very valuable. But for a donor who can step out and say, I'm going to give a high school kid a donation, I'm going to make sure that it makes an impact on them, that student can grow in entrepreneurship and build those skills to be ready to go to enter the workforce. And isn't that what they're all looking for right now? A hard worker, initiative. And there's nothing that's going to show that more than giving them the opportunity to advance and have that passion for agriculture. I also would say to those donors, don't we want it to be in agriculture? Of all the opportunities that there are out there, shouldn't we be growing agriculture so we can feed our community, and so that we can keep these great minds in our community developing agriculture and building our community of agriculture?
Well said. Well said.
Yeah, awesome.
I hope we have
Janella,
lots of donors listening.
yeah, I do too. Do you have any, maybe a student testimony from somebody at the top of your mind who received this grant, who's really taken run with it, that you would tell us about?
Oh my. We have several kids that have done great things. We have a small animal kid who's done doggy bandanas. She's gone a couple different directions. We have some students who have added to their herd for cattle. That's one of the major things. Like you have a kid who has their family has raised cattle all their life, and maybe grandpa says, oh, this calf is yours, but like, do they really feel like it's theirs? But then they take the grant and they purchase their own at a sale. We had a student a couple weeks ago, he bought at a registered sale and he was able to use his grant money there. And I mean, that's his own, and he's got his name on it, and he adds to his family's legacy. And that's important because we all know, anybody in the livestock industry knows that breeding and selective breeding and all those things, that's like laying out that's a path. The breeding that we do with our livestock and the selection that we do, that's a valuable thing in agriculture because we're bettering our herd. Well, we're bettering for our future down the line. So that student who's doing that, that's an amazing thing. It's also, and this is very general, this is a general statement, but for the students that I have who are applying for these grants that are brand new, who are absolutely starting from bare bones, bottom up. The kid that I had who got a grant and bought greenhouse supplies. Yes, she has purchased a small greenhouse. She's purchased some solar panels. She's got a fan. She's got lighting. She's got an automatic watering system. She is doing these things. She brought it. We have an ag fair, and we let all the elementary kids come and tour the ag fair. That happened last week on Friday. She brought pieces of her, of course, she can't bring the greenhouse and set it up. She doesn't want to move all her things, but she brought components and seeds. And she talked to those kids not only about her project, but that she received a grant from a donor in our community and that she was able to do this through FFA. So that's a success story because she's spreading the word, not only to her peers, but to the younger ones who are going to come up through our program. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's a real difference. And I love hearing those stories. They never get old. Well, Janella, we always end our podcast with asking our guests the same 3 questions. And the first one is, what is the best piece of leadership advice that you've ever received?
The golden rule. Do unto others as you have them do unto you. Just try to be the best that you can, and treat others and do work with others the way you wish for them to work with you. And I try really hard to make sure my students see that and that my peers feel like they can come to me for help and that I will help them whenever they need it. So a leader is going to do those things.
Yeah. And you do that. Well, the Kentucky FFA Foundation, we're philanthropy. It's all about giving back time, talent, treasure. And so we always like to provide an opportunity for our guests to shout out somebody who's poured their time, talent into you to help you grow. Who would that be?
Kirby Hancock. I would never call him by his first name to this day. He is Mr. Hancock. And he was my ag teacher in high school. He knows how valuable he is. He's got an amazing wife and they are a great team. And they brought me through high school and made lots of opportunities. He was the first one to put me on a plane. I'd never flown. And I tell my students that story. So he's left a legacy, not only with me, but with lots of other people who can say that he did the same thing for them.
Yeah. Relationships with your ag teachers are hard to describe. I mean, they take you places physically that you've never been before, and then they challenge you mentally and they're there for you emotionally. It's a great relationship. Well, our last question we always ask our guests is kind of off the wall here, but what is something that you're loving right now that's helping you grow? So, I mean, this could be anything. It could be a tool, a gadget, a habit, anything that's helping you grow.
So more time in the field, more time outside. But there's value in the peace that you find being outdoors. We're lambing right now at home, and every chance that I get to be out in the pasture with my kids and my husband and just sit and watch lambs is peaceful. That gives me calm. And in this season of my life, I need that. There is value in SAE visits because when you walk outside with your students, you also get to experience that peace in being out there with them, seeing them and the excitement that they have in their projects that they have. So that's personally and professionally. And then, of course, the value of prayer. So the fact that I can go to the Lord and pray and be uplifted when I've had a bad day or a good day, and to know that I've got a friend to talk to all the time, that's peaceful, and it's a confidence builder.
Well, that's beautiful. Janella, thank you for sharing that with us. You are You were authentic. What people heard today, this is the real you. This is what kind of teacher you are. And it's very clear that you love your students and your community and your family so well. And we're lucky to have you in this profession and lucky to have you on our podcast today.
Thank you. I appreciate you all very much and the work you do.
You all, thanks for joining us for another episode of Growing Kentucky's Leaders. Growing Kentucky's Leaders is a podcast brought to you by the Kentucky FFA Foundation. Our music is performed by Bourbon County FFA member Joe Fritch. Artwork is by Julie Fritch Creative. Your hosts are Sheldon McKinney and Ruth Ann Fink, and you can find us on all social platforms at Kentucky FFA.